is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break. Winning it 3.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, like I told you guys last Friday, the guest I have helping preview this Philadelphia Union vs. FC Cincinnati game is someone who has been crushing Union content for the last several years. He's a guy who has appeared on this podcast as a contestant for our Union Trivia series. So I'd like to welcome back onto the show, Mr. Ryan Shute, or better known as Talk Doop with Ryan. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Great. Happy to be back on the podcast. And I noticed the intro. That's incredible. I loved it. That was great.
Yeah, definitely a lot different than the quiz trivia kind of music when you were last on and everything. So shout out to Brad, my good friend, for mixing that up for me and everything. And I'm glad people like that intro and everything. So you're definitely not the first, and hopefully people will continue to give positive thoughts on that intro.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you. But I was going to say, I mean, it's been a little bit since we last heard from you, but I'm sure a lot of listeners that listen to this podcast, they also watch your YouTube videos, and you've recently started doing match previews on game day on Twitter. So like I said, this is your first time, though, on the podcast talking about the Union with me and not getting quizzed. But seriously, though, I love what you're doing, Ryan, with Union content. I'm so happy that on match days you go live and talk about the lineups, just give your overall thoughts. Because even though I didn't watch you from when you first started on YouTube, people can still go back and see when you first started, and you've grown so much with your knowledge for the game and for this team, and you seem just so much more confident now than you ever have. So, I mean, just keep up the great work, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've just been doing those lives lately. I think a little bit more people see them, and it's also better because I got a little bit more things to discuss. But trial and error, I just like to see what people like, how it goes over, and you'll see a variety of content from me. A little plug, if I will. My YouTube channel, Talk with Ryan, I've been posting videos in there for a couple of years now. But also, yeah, you got to follow me on Twitter too, because that's where you get a lot of my grandma, for example. She always is looking for the previews a couple days in advance, but I tell her they're on Twitter now sometimes. So if you do not follow me on Twitter, it's at TalkDoop, and a lot of content is coming on there if you have not been following that yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's great stuff that you're doing, like I said, Ryan. And, like I said, I mean, people want to go back and see when you first started and everything. And, I mean, it's all there and everything. And you've had a couple players, give you shout outs for your introduction and everything. And I love that. I think Fafa Pico, Fabinho, Ali Bedoya. I'm sure there's a couple more that I miss and everything. But, I mean, yeah, dude, you're crushing it. And, I mean, keep up the great work that you're doing. But let's go ahead and talk about this Philadelphia Union Cincinnati game. So, as we all know, the last time these two teams played, they tied. And Brad from FC Cincinnati Soccer Talk, he tried to convince me that, yeah, the Union were going to win this game 2-0 on the road. And I was like, yeah, I'm not having any of this. I'm not buying into what you're saying. I mean, you're making good points and everything, but I know how Cincinnati plays. You know how Cincinnati plays. Union Nation knows how Cincinnati plays. They love to park the bus, and that's exactly how they played against the Union. And look, the Union, they had a few chances in that game, but there were two things that surprised me about that game. One being, I didn't think Cincinnati really would have any chance of scoring this game, but I know Andre Blake bailed the Union out late in the second half and made a phenomenal save. I know Lacadia went close once or twice in this game, but luckily Andre Blake's been arguably the MVP for not only the Union, but potentially the whole league this year. And point number two, that turf was really, really atrocious. I cannot believe how bad that field was. So, Ryan, just what are your thoughts from the last time the Union and Cincinnati played?
Yeah, so unlike you, I actually thought the Union were going to win that game as well. I said that was a game that you got to pick up points in, which I did. They got 1 point, but obviously the 3 points would have been good because if you look at the table right now, the Union and Crew are really tight. So maybe 2 more points there would have helped the Union. It wasn't a terrible performance, nor was it a great one from the Union. But, you sort of expect the Union to pick up, the 3 points in that game just because they're the better team. You could look at the leaderboard. the Union are towards the top, Cincinnati are towards the bottom. I just think Union should have won that game. They didn't play great, but we're actually lucky that we didn't even lose. Like you said, Locotti, he had a great opportunity. That dude's a baller. He's on loan from Brighton, I believe. So you expect that dude to score that 9 times out of 10. So like I said, we're lucky that we didn't lose that game, but still happy to pick up a point, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. A point in the league's a great point earned and everything. I mean, I remember last year, people always told me, the best teams in MLS are the teams that can go ahead and get a result on the road. And so far, the Union are getting results at home and they're getting results on the road and everything. And it's no wonder that I believe they're second in the Supporters Shield and then they're second tied with Toronto as of right now because Ryan and I are recording this game before the Toronto game and everything. So fingers crossed, no injuries and everything. Who knows what's going to happen in that Toronto game? But I did predict, unfortunately, for the Union to draw against Toronto 2-2, but I said I could see the Union winning. So if you guys missed that episode, just go back and hear my thoughts and everything. But yeah, I mean, just talking about that turf field again, I don't know why, but I really don't remember last year that turf being that bad. And maybe that's because it was raining last year. And I know Jim Curtin was pretty angry in his press conference about the turf, saying that there should be no turf fields in the league. I know the NFLPA is trying to get all teams to switch over to grass fields. And, honestly, I don't blame them because I hated playing on soccer fields that had turf and everything because I can remember a couple times my cleats would get stuck in the turf. And I remember thinking to myself, if somebody came in and made a challenge and everything, that could have been a serious injury. And I know there's people that say, oh, long term, playing on turf is worse for your knees. People look at statistics and say there's more injury in turf than grass. And I'm really not here to say who's right, who's wrong. But I just know me personally, I'd much rather play on a nice grass surface than on turf because playing soccer here in Harford County, I know that it is impossible for them to have nice grass fields. So all the high schools eventually switched over to turf. And it's funny just thinking about it because I remember the school would bring in bulldozers and everything, try to flatten the grass fields and everything, try to get rid of divots and just make it even. I feel like it made it a lot worse when they would do that. And so, I mean, I get why they switched over to turf fields and everything because it's easy to maintain and everything. And I feel like if it was that easy, then every team in the NFL would have grass. So we all know that it's not easy, but we're not here to talk about, how do you get a proper grass field? Just what are your thoughts on the mess of a field that Cincinnati play on? Do you prefer grass or turf or?
Right. Well, there's a fine line between a awful grass field, a turf field, and a fantastic grass field. I'd much rather play on turf than a really bad grass field. I don't know why. But when I go up to the fields to practice or whatever, I usually go to the turf, but that's just me. But I do agree, like, it is kind of a joke that professional athletes have to play on that. It's not Cincinnati's, like, actual stadium. They're going to be moving over to that, a much nicer stadium in a couple of years or next year, I believe. But, yeah, in the long term, yes, that you can get a severe injury from that. And like I said before, there's no reason that they should be playing on that. But I guess I understand just because they're getting that new stadium soon. So, yeah, it's just kind of a joke that they had to play on that. It did not look good. We're lucky nobody got hurt. But
Gaddis got hurt, I believe it was.
What?
Ray Gaddis, I think, got hurt actually in that game.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Ray Gaddis did get hurt. I'm not saying that was a turf-related injury, but who knows? Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, a field's a field, but like I said, some are good, some are bad. But I don't know. I think Jim Curtin maybe had a little bit of an overreaction. I'm not one to say. I'm a 15-year-old kid that's played on turf and grass my whole life, so I kind of like turf. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's debatable, but like I said, professional level, there's no reason they should be playing on that.
I'm sure that's the debate that everybody wanted to hear us talking about grass or turf and everything. So even though you guys didn't ask for it, there it is. Like I said earlier, Ryan and I are recording this game before the Union's game against Toronto. In Cincinnati, they play against Minnesota. So like I said, just fingers crossed that neither of these teams suffer any injuries in their weekend games. But the one thing that we can talk about, though, is after Cincinnati held us to a draw, they went on to play New York City FC, and they lost that game 4-0 on the road. And I think one thing that helped NYCFC right away is that they were able to score in the first minute of the game, which forced Cincinnati to actually come out with an attacking plan. They couldn't sit deep. Matriza for NYCFC, he was just able to get through the midfield completely unmarked. And not only him, I mean, it happened with a lot of NYCFC defenders in this game. Just unlike our game against Cincinnati, Cincinnati weren't tracking runners through the midfield and everything. And you saw so much space for New York City in this game against Cincinnati. And maybe that's one thing the Union can focus on and everything. We'll talk what it takes for the Union to beat Cincinnati this time around. Another thing that I thought NYCFC did so well this game was they overloaded the right side of Cincinnati's defense, which we saw the Union do that a couple times. And our best chance against Cincinnati when we played them was when Sergio was just sprinting down the left side of the field, completely dusted the Cincinnati defender, had a shot missed just wide and everything. But just what players this game against Cincinnati are looking to have a big game, Ryan, for the Union?
Yeah, this is a game where it's a midweek game. So a lot of those games are pretty sluggish, pretty, not very exciting. But yeah, if you look back at the last one, it was 0-0, pretty boring game. But yeah, they usually lack that, like, the big plays. Most goals are, not the prettiest, but that's just a general statement. It's not always the case, but in this game, you need players like Kacper Shiboka to show up, Jamir Montero to show up. Those are your two biggest players on the team. Those are the guys that you expect to come up with the big plays, and they got to deliver again. Jamir hasn't had the best season this year, but Kacper sure has. He's had 7 goals now, so they got to show up. Not saying they didn't show up last time, but like, these are the games that your big players have to play well in, and if they don't, that's kind of inexcusable because Cincinnati isn't the greatest team. We're clearly the better side. Yeah, you just need your big players to show up, but obviously it's going to help if Sergio Santos, Ilsinho, Fontana. As long as those guys put in solid shifts, the star players need to finish that off.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point that you bring up about Jamiro, because in my Toronto preview and everything, I said I want to see Jamiro pick up a yellow card against Toronto, because that means that he would miss a game against Cincinnati. And, I don't want to see Jamiro miss a bigger game because he picks up a yellow card against Cincinnati or something. So if that happens, I can see Jim putting Fontana as a number 10 and Brendan in Jamiro's spot. And we saw when Brendan played as an 8 against Miami, it worked really, really well for the Union. I mean, both the Union and Cincinnati, like you said, I mean, it was such a boring game, such a poor game from both of them when the Union went away to Cincinnati. And I feel sorry, like you said, I mean, it was just super boring. I feel sorry if that was anyone's first time actually watching the Union, because that's a game that, let's be honest, that gives soccer a bad rap. People are saying, oh, soccer's so boring, there's no scoring. And no, well, if you actually watch more than one Union game, you would see that they're not a boring team at all. They've scored 24 goals, I think it is, on the season so far, which comes close to 2 goals scored a game. Just for whatever reason, the Union really struggle to break teams down that sit deep, and that's not just a Union problem. That's a problem for all teams in the world. They can be Barcelona, they can be Bayern Munich, Manchester United, even though, people always want to rag on me. They're not a top team in the world. So, hey, I hear it. And I always bring up Manchester United when I shouldn't, because I know all the stick I'll get and everything. So next time I'll say a bigger team like Liverpool. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just not a Union problem where you see other teams in MLS. Columbus struggled against Cincinnati when they sat deep, and MLS is back when they went to Cincinnati. It ended in a 0-0 draw. I mean, it's tough to score in Cincinnati. I believe Cincinnati hasn't given up a goal at home all season long, and
they haven't. I think they scored like 1 goal too. Some crazy thing. It's like the last 4 games were like 0-0 draws, and it doesn't surprise me. Their backline isn't bad by any means, and their offense is fairly non-existent. So it's like, it doesn't surprise me that they're 0-0. So
yeah,
it's
definitely
not the most exciting side in Cincinnati.
No, it's not, and I get it from a Cincinnati standpoint. Like I said, when I had Brad on from FC Soccer Talk, we talked about it. Stom, it's his first time in MLS and everything. He came onto the job 4 months, and so these players on his players, he really couldn't come up with a game plan how he wants them to play. So I get it. I get why they sit deep. I don't respect it, but I mean, I totally get it from the FC Cincinnati standpoint. But just what are you looking for the Union to do this game that they didn't do last time they played Cincinnati?
I just think they have to get a little bit more, passing in the final third. In the final third last game, it was just a lot of back and forth, just like nothing direct into the box. I don't know exactly what the stats were, but there wasn't a lot of crosses. Like there wasn't a lot of chances for Ketsper, to get on the end of one. Not saying the Union always have great success on crossing, but it's something that is a lot of goals come from in soccer, and I didn't see a lot of that out of the Union last time they played Cincinnati. So I think that's going to be something that's really important. But there's a lot of guys, Kendall Waston, their center back. He's a tall dude. He can mark, a lot of players in MLS very well. Really big. He's really strong. You saw last game, he fouled Ketsper a lot. So maybe that's like a tactical thing. He's just slowing down the attack because the Union do have a strong and really good counterattack. So Kendall Waston, hopefully maybe he doesn't even play, but who knows? A lot of midweek roster changes you see a lot. Nick Hagland, he tested positive for COVID-19, so I honestly don't even know what's going on with him. Last time I checked, it said he was out for this Saturday game. But like I said, just crosses, a little bit more services into the box, and hey, maybe rip a couple from outside the box. You saw Martinez do that a few times. They went and hit the Bengals stadium, but I think he'll connect on one of them soon. A lot of shots, a lot of crosses will be important for this game.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point that you bring up about Waston. I mean, he was all over the Union. He's a tall dude. He won 5 aerial battles in the defensive half for Cincinnati, where you look to his left, Pedersen, he won 6 of those. So, I mean, these guys are good in the air and everything. And maybe that's why the Union weren't successful crossing the ball, just because they got 2 tall center backs that really mark out well against any opposition and everything. But, I do believe in Matt Real's delivery, Kai Wagner's delivery. We've seen more times than not, they've played really good balls. And Ray Gaddis has played a couple good balls too from the right side, and Mbaizer as well. But for me personally, I think my 3 keys to victory, number one, they've got to win the midfield battle. As far as I'm concerned, I think the last time these two teams met, I think Cincinnati's midfield was better than the Union's, even though you and I both agree that the Union have better players than Cincinnati, and there's no reason they should have drawn against Cincinnati. But like I keep saying, they struggle to break teams down that sit deep. You look that Cincinnati, they stole the ball 17 times from the Union last time out. They made 19 tackles. Harrison, Frankie Amara, they had 10 interceptions between the two of them. So the Union have to make better choices in the midfield with the ball. They've got to realize, we all know Harris isn't the fastest player and everything. So if Harris is coming to press and everything, they'll have time on the ball, but they've got to make better decisions, just not lofting the ball and hoping that Sergio can run onto the ball or Casper can run onto it. Point number 2, I think just like New York City did, they've got to overload the right side of Cincinnati's defense. Like I was talking about earlier, the Union's best chance in this game was when Sergio Santos was running down the left on the left side of the field for the Union, missed just wide and everything. New York City were constantly exposing Cincinnati by playing this way and everything. So I think it's really going to be a game plan that the Union have noticed that works when teams play Cincinnati. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Union play a little bit more on the left side of the field, because we know that most of their attack comes down the right side of the field with Ali Bedoya, and you see Casper shift out wide and everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if they attack a little bit more on the left. And point number 3, they've got to take advantage of Anthony Fontana. Look, Jim said he didn't use Anthony because of an injury to Mbaizo the last time these two met. So he wasn't sure if he would have to sub out Mbaizo. I get it, and a lot of us fans were upset because Anthony's been on fire as of late. But even if Jameer doesn't pick up a yellow card against Toronto, I'd actually rest him this game because I feel like Jameer's not got any rest at all this season, just a couple minutes here and there. And I wouldn't mind seeing Brendan play as a number 8 while Anthony plays as a 10, because Anthony's finding so much space as a number 10. He's scoring. He's finding ways to get open and lay the ball off to his teammates. So use him. He's in hot form and everything. And I think if the Union follow these three keys, they can definitely get a victory this game. But are there any other points, Ryan, you want to bring up before we give our predictions for this game?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there with the midfield. I didn't even think of that. The Union made Harrison Dungeon look like a good defensive player. And us Union fans, we know he is not the greatest defensive player. We've said it for years. He does not, he's not very good at, just lets guys dribble right past him a lot of times. And interceptions was never his thing. And they certainly made him look like he was good at that the other night. So it's just a matter of winning that midfield battle, like you said. And the Fontana thing, I really agree. I think Jamiro, he's our only designated player on this team. You kind of expect a little bit more out of him than what he's been doing. That's not to say that the Union, that he's been bad this year. He hasn't been bad at all, but I just think he's been a little bit disappointing. I think give the homegrown Anthony Fontana another run at it. I think Fontana is certainly capable. I think he could be the next Union player shipped off to Europe if he continues this form. I honestly have no idea why he hasn't played that much in the last couple of years. I think he's a great player. You see him get a lot stronger for sure. I think Fontana is definitely will be a starter next year if Aronson does go to Salzburg. But yeah, you touched on it for sure. Midfield and Fontana, I think, is going to be key to this game as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good point you bring up, that Anthony Fontana could potentially be, after Mark McKenzie and Brendan Aronson, the next player going to Europe. I mean, we really haven't thought about that because, like you said, he hasn't been playing much the last couple of years, but every time he's gotten a chance, he's looked really promising and everything. And if he continues to score, I don't care what team it is in the world, anybody could use a goal scorer. And if Anthony keeps scoring, then, some team's going to be desperate enough in a January transfer window where they're fighting relegation. Like, hey, look, this guy might give us a spark, get us some goals that we need. And I don't know, maybe in a year, Anthony could be the next Union homegrown up there and everything. But, I'm going to go ahead and give my prediction, and I'm going to say this is going to be a 2-0 victory for the Union this time around. I think with the Union undefeated at home so far, it's been tough for teams to come down and break the Union down at Subaru Park. Cincinnati, they only have 8 goals on the season, and all of those goals have came on the road, but trust me, they're not going to score at Subaru Park. I think the Union will be annoyed how the game went in Cincinnati, and they'll make sure that this game doesn't go the same way. It's you said it. It's a midweek game and everything. Jim Curtin said in the past, yeah, we prefer playing on Wednesdays because they've had success and everything, except for when they played in Cincinnati and drew 0-0. But who knows what's going to happen in these weekend games and everything. I kind of wish we were recording this after those games, but, with going on vacation and everything, that's why I'm just trying to get ahead of everything while you guys have content to listen to while I'm away. But I think it is going to be a Union victory. There's just no way I see Cincinnati coming in scoring because they're just not a good team at all. And if the Union can get a goal early on, then it might be more than 2 goals that the Union score. I mean, it seems like the Union need to score 3 or 4 goals at Subaru Park this season. So I think it's definitely going to be a good game nonetheless, and it's going to be a lot different than what we saw in Cincinnati.
You're right about the Union being so good at home this year that you really never expect the Union to lose at home. I've sort of just been getting that feeling recently. They've been great. They've beaten teams that are certainly talented. Shutting out Higuain, that's something to be proud of. That's really if you told me like 3 years ago that Union were going to be taking on Gonzalo Higuain and Inter Miami in a stadium full of no one with 3-4 homegrowns on the field, I wouldn't believe you. It's really unreal what the Union have been able to do. I just think you're right. This has to be a win for the Union. I said it last time. I'll say it again. Cincinnati's a team you got to beat, and you got to get points against. These are the games that we're really going to be thankful for picking up wins down the road, and could even get us a supporter shield. These are the types of games that you got to get points in. So I agree with you. I don't think Cincinnati's going to score. I think it's going to be a 3-0 victory for the Union.
Absolutely. Well, all of us will take that result, and hopefully the Union can continue the good form that they're on and everything, and hopefully Cincinnati just they continue to be Cincinnati, and hopefully Columbus and Toronto and Orlando, all those teams can find ways to slip up, and the Union can really distance themselves from those teams. I don't think it's going to happen because as it stands, those 4 teams have been the most consistent on the Eastern side, but not only the Eastern side, just all of MLS this season. So, like you said, the Union got to win the games that they're supposed to win, and the rest will take care of itself. But I know you plugged yourself earlier on the podcast, Ryan, but for anybody that, didn't catch that for whatever reason, go ahead and plug yourself again and let everybody know where to find you.
Yes, my YouTube channel, Talk with Ryan. Like I said, I haven't been the most consistent with posting videos on there recently, but another important place to find me is Twitter, and that is @TalkDoop. So look for my content on those 2 platforms. Like I said, appreciate you for having me on. Love talking to other Union content creators. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you for coming on. And for all the people that aren't following the podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, I have no clue why. I always do a different order for those. But you can follow @FreeKickPod. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcast, check out the Free Kick podcast. Oh, the Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And it's really simple and everything. But yeah, Ryan, it's a blast having you on, actually talking about the Union, not quizzing you, seeing what you know, what you don't know, while you have a buzzer going off and everything. So, you look a little bit more relaxed. You sound more relaxed and everything. So I can't wait to have you on later on the season. And when we start up season 2 of the Trivia Quiz podcast, hopefully you come out for that.
For sure, yeah. That was a fun time on the Free Kick podcast doing the trivia. So, hey, why not have a listen if you're bored during these times? Maybe you're stuck at home. Why not have a listen to the old trivia podcast? That was certainly fun. All my family found that pretty entertaining, so why not check it out?
Absolutely. And I did have Ryan, before we did that competition, as the favorite. And I think you won like 2 games or something like that. So when we come out with season 2, you definitely have a chance to redeem yourself. But nonetheless, hopefully the Union win this game against Cincinnati, because with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.